Um, hey, everybody. You know me. It's Dr. Tamu Petra Brown, founder of Innovative Education and Training Solutions. And I am here with Natasha Leader, a most impressive, a most knowledgeable resource mobilization expert. And so this is episode one of my rare conversations. And as we move through different episodes, you'll get to learn what rare is about. But really, at Innovative Education and Training, we are a business support organization and we support leaders, particularly women, at the apex of corporate entities and entrepreneurship spaces, right? And public sector leaders as well. And how we intend to use the rare conversations, we intend to provide insight that can assist anyone in our target group with really helping them to grow, helping them to transform, helping them to lead with authority and knowledge. And so I'm really thrilled to have as our first guest Miss Natasha Leader. So, Natasha, introduce yourself and let everybody know before we even dive deep, what is a resource mobilization expert?
Okay, thanks for having me, Dr. Tamu. It's always great to catch up and have conversation with you. You're a very inspiring and idea-making kind of person because I find when I'm finished talking to you, I have so many things I need to write down and be able, and also to make them actionable. That is also very important. So I am a resource mobilization expert. I bring information to different spheres, different arenas. It could be your group, it could be your business, it could be your department. And I find ways in which those resources can become more available and more efficient for you. For example, there are times I come across scholarships. I share those. There have been individuals that have gotten scholarships from who have been very successful in applying for the scholarships that I would have shared with them. I write grants. I also do applications for other types of boot camps, accelerators, different types of activities. So at times you have a link in your sphere, but a resource mobilization expert helps you to maximize the efficiency of all of the links that are in your sphere. Sometimes you don't know that there's a link. So the informational part that I bring to a particular group or organization is to let you know that, hey, this thing exists, this opportunity exists. Let's try to cash in on it. Let's try to benefit from it. So that's how I do my
Really, thank you for that because that's really important. And I feel like what you do is a necessary part of everyone's team. So I can speak for myself as an entrepreneur and in the quasi public sector space as a board chair of a tertiary education institution. You are always resource strapped. That's something that always will exist, particularly in the public education space and particularly in the entrepreneurship space. And you know as well, and our audience knows that when you sit at the apex, the top of your organization, or you are responsible for growing the bottom line, etc. But there are so many other elements and stakeholders, etc, and you don't know the fastest way to access resources. And so the idea of a resource mobilization expert who, what you do is you trade in information and you trade in the expertise to leverage the information. And, that is something particularly unique, I think, especially in the Caribbean space. And so that's why I really wanted to bring you here today. S- Go ahead, Natasha.
Sure, yes. Training is a very big part of what I do. I do a lot of one-on-one consultation as well as group training. And it's very important because a lot of the information that is shared at times is not always very clear. And so persons need ways to be able to clarify that information, to distill it down to the level or to the sphere in which they operate. It could be a caterer, it could be an artist, it could be a group that does pottery. Uh, the information can be very generic and general, and to be able to produce the information that will be needed to put into the application to get the kind of resources that you need to bring it down to the area in which each group or each person operates.
Okay, thank you. Now let's talk a little bit about the resource landscape. I mean, in the Caribbean, we speak of grants. That's the terminology that we use. But I want to use the word resource and not grants, because not every resource is a grant, a financial grant. There are opportunities that, though they are sponsored, they are not in true form a grant, right? But they're resources. So I want you to take us through pre-COVID, COVID, and now post-COVID in terms of the shift in the resource landscape.
Well, the shift has been interesting for various reasons. Pre-COVID, there was a lot more funds available in terms of being able to buy a lot of physical things. There's still that available, but it is now tied to a lot of learning and a lot of structure and policy. So before COVID, there was a lot of funding to be able to have things. You buy a baler, you buy a truck, different kinds of things. But now, because of that, because of the fact that there has been an overuse of asking for a vehicle all the time or buying things all the time, you see now the restrictions of, you're an agro processor, you need to buy a piece of equipment that will make a great difference in your production. So you need to be able to say, by having this piece of equipment, it will increase my manufacturing 100-fold, 10, 20%, 30%. That 30% now has to be linked to being able to offer more so that you can now have a particular slice of the market where your product can now be ready for export. So a lot of it's now, as opposed to pre-COVID, it's now linked to the ability to get into a new sphere, the ability to broaden your market, the ability to be able to get your product in front of new faces and into new areas. So everything now is linked. So you find now there's a lot of persons who say, well, I don't really want to do that because I have to do 6 weeks of training. But a lot of the opportunities now are linked to training because of the fact there is a monitoring and an evaluation component where a lot of information is gathered during that time where they have the training to be able to assess and also to assist you to adjust so that when you get the funds at the end, it will not just be to get a piece of equipment that just sits there, but it will be there and it will be functioning in your business and on non-profit organization so that it can create some level of impact. So impact and outcomes are a very big part of what is available now. Before, yes, there was impact and outcome, but everything now is is a lot tighter, is a lot more connected, and you have to show how what you're asking for will benefit the entire organization in terms of seeing that ripple type of effect. So that's what I think is important in terms of the changes that we see now.
Yeah, that's interesting because I believe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that shift began during COVID, like when we were just coming out of COVID. You would know that I was on that future e-tourism um, sponsored resource program by UNDP and UE, and that really was about skills, right? And how you would implement these skills. And I think that like you rightly said, we're seeing that funnel through opportunities that are tightly aligned with training. So I just completed one for CDB that was in digital marketing and so on and so forth. So I do see that where they're trying to upskill as the backbone or the scaffold for the investment in tangible items, etc. Now, in terms of sector shift, where are the resources funneled now in terms of sectors? What are the trends there?
Well, the sectors now that are very popular, and for some persons, it may be a little bit of a pinch, but I see more and more resources and opportunities going into persons who are 18 to 35. A lot of young people, persons who not necessarily would have gotten that opportunity from before. I'm seeing a lot of internships, a lot of fellowships, for persons who just finishing up at a postgraduate or an undergraduate degree, and you're seeing those types of opportunities where they can get levels of learning in very prestigious organizations. I see stuff for World Bank, international organizations, different development banks around the world provide those different types of opportunities. There's also opportunities in clean energy, mitigating, assisting in terms of adapting to the effects of climate change. There is a lot of um, women-led businesses and also vulnerable groups. Also, because of so many things happening in the world and the different wars, there's a general shift going towards crisis and migration. And so crisis and migration affects everyone. I'm sure everyone around can tell, there's somebody around who is now in their sphere because of some level of crisis, and they migrated because of that. It could be economic crisis, it could be violence and crime, it could be some level of any type of agitation. But I'm seeing a lot of that being done as well. There's also a push for agriculture reliance, being able to have persons become more reliant, to be able to save and not spend so much to decrease the import bills. That's something that's also very regional, that's being done. And we will see more and more and more of that being done. There's also a shift to digital transformation and technology. Came across a course couple of months ago about teaching girls how to fly drones. There was that level of impact. So you realize that there's a lot of opportunities there trying to I would say bridge the gap between the who has a particular opportunity to learn something and who does not.
Okay, so the gap in the digital divide, a lot of focus there, climate action, climate justice, social justice, etc. That's interesting. And I wanted to talk about the shift in the priorities of the US administration, the new US administration, President Trump, and how that shift is currently affecting the resource landscape. We know notably like US aid. I realize that in America they say USAID. We say US aid and other types of funding or resources that might have redound to us here in the region. What are your thoughts on the new administration and its impact on the resource mobilization landscape in the Caribbean region?
Well, like everything else, there is a ripple effect of various hubs around the world. It could be the US, it could be the UK. In this situation, we're speaking about the US, and there are shifts from what would have been what we would call DEI from before, to now what persons are calling MEI, which is merit and intelligence and enterprise. So because of the shift from one to the other, there is a need for organizations as well as businesses to do a lot of data capture. And that is important because you now have to substantiate why you need the funds. because also of the removal of funding from various organizations because of the lack of USAID funds or the freezing of those funds, there's going to be a lot of more competition. There's going to be a lot more competition in other areas. In the UK sector, they call it charitable trusts. In the US sector, they call it foundations. And there's also some trusts as well. But there's going to be more competition for the funds that are available. So persons will not stop giving, but it may not come through a particular spigot or avenue anymore. You will see it come through foundations and other types of vehicles in terms of being able to do funding. You will also see a lot more charitable giving. They may do a lot more drives in terms of clothing drives and food drives because persons need to expend certain types of funds because of their disposable income. There are persons out there that make a lot of money, and that is the way that they dispose of a lot of their funds. Incidentally, though, there is going to be a review of some of the tax brackets as well as the tax incentives of persons of that caliber as well. Because before you could have said, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to donate this because I can charge it against my taxation. That is going to be reviewed or be under review in a while. So before, when a charitable organization or not-for-profit would say, hey, give us this money because, you can get it off of your taxes and it would be deducted. That may not, depending on the outcome, that may not be something that you can claim anymore. So now it behoves the organization to show data in terms of how much you have been using the funds, how many people you have been reaching, and how has it been benefiting them, and show the impact in the community that you are addressing or the audience you're addressing.
Brings me to a conversation on resource mobilization through the global south. And in the region in particular, we are having much engagement with the continent of Africa, really through the Afri-Exim Bank, right? And the Afri-Exim Bank, they are being very bullish on diaspora connections, trade relationships. In terms of leadership, we know that Honorable Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, she is an exceptional advocate for the strengthening of that diaspora relationship. Now, what would be your advice given that we are seeing a constantly shifting landscape when it comes to resources, how resources are distributed, mobilized in our traditional partners in the North? What might be your advice for organizations in the region in their growth stages when it comes to mobilizing resources in the context of the geopolitical environment?
What I would say is to definitely look at your past actions and try as much as possible to move them from just being a one-off action. I think I would have done a presentation some time ago about changing your one-off action to becoming a program, and that needs to be done. So I realize we love to do bake sales. We love to do walks, health walks. We love to do night walks, sponsor walks, different schools, different fundraising type of activities. Those things now have to shift in terms of getting data from those activities to translate into something else, into something which is more ongoing. Because getting the one-off funds is going to be more and more difficult because you have to substantiate the sustainability of your actions over time. And if you're only having a bake sale once every 6 months, or if you're only having a fundraiser once every 3 months, you have a gala close to Christmas or something like that, then that does not translate to an activity that is over a period of time. So there needs to be a migration from just having a fundraiser to have a certain amount of money to be able to pay for some things to having a program which addresses the audience which you have been targeting for some time. So if your audience are students, if your audience are women-led businesses, if your audience are youth-led businesses or online businesses, whatever your target audience is, you have to now become a lot more data-driven. Collect more information. Who are you serving? What is the age range? Where are they located? Are they on social media? What platforms are they on? How can you reach them? There needs to be a shift to show persons as well how the funds have been used. So there needs to be more exposure to be able to do a drip feed of success stories, meet the staff, behind the scenes, meet the board, um, let's see how I formulate my new product. Is it something that's indigenous? Is it cocoa butter? Is it coconut oil? There's the need now to show a lot more involvement. People need a more of an experiential thing. I realize that has been the trend as it relates to tourism for a while, for things to become more experiential. It's the same way with the grand landscape. People want a nice story. They want a good understanding of the background. If you had to travel 4 miles to collect your salt from over by the salt pond, something like that. But you have to be able to show the authenticity, as well as the culturalness of the culture of what you are presenting, whether it could be a product, whether it could be an experience in a particular island or in a particular place. You have to show some roots and then be able to give the type of exposure. Also, the shifts in terms of the focus on funding are going to be different because before there was a lot of, like I said, diversity and equity inclusion, there was affirmative action. All of those things are now becoming a thing of the past. So there's a lot more detail that needs to go into proposals about how are you capturing your audience, how will you carry the information or the assistance that you'll be getting, and how will you sustain it? There's a lot more offers now that you're going to be able to see as it relates to drugs. There's more funding that's going to be coming to as it relates to drug abuse and dealing with persons who are in those areas where they need assistance to be able to manage and come off of drug abuse. Also, there's also a fact that needs to be addressed. Programs now will not be just something that will be ongoing. There needs to be a graduation that happens, a graduation. So say you are dealing with mothers who don't have enough money. You're going to be teaching them skills. You're going to be teaching them um, budgeting. You're going to be teaching them different ways of being able to save money around their home. You're going to give them parenting classes. But you have to be able to show from the money that is spent or the money that is expended into the program, then this amount of persons are now able to stand on their own feet and they will not be involved in the program anymore. They have graduated from the program. So before there was a lot of emphasis on ongoing assistance, but now there is more of a impact program as well as graduation to show this is how the outcome of it has resulted.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to uh, get back to the Afri-Exim and the Africa Caribbean diaspora linkages and the nature of resources that organizations in the region might access from this deepening of that relationship. What I have been observing is that relationship represents a departure for Caribbean organizations and founders in what they are accustomed to when it comes to resource mobilization. So, in this part of the world, we are more accustomed to that grant, right? That free money, free technical assistance, etc. But the relationship, it seems, at the between the African continent and the diaspora, the Caribbean diaspora, and our CARICOM nations, that seems to be more debt financing led and led through, uh, initiatives initiated by Caribbean companies through engagement in expos. I think we were on a call where AfriExim Bank is hosting that expo in, I believe it is Algeria in September. And it seems to me that it will require a lot more professionalization and investment on on the part of Caribbean businesses. And I find from my work with entrepreneurs all throughout the region that there is not that great an affinity for debt financing or investment period. So, given that we might have to look south more, at least in this short to medium term, what are your thoughts around, my little monologue there about Caribbean businesses shifting or maybe pivoting their mindset around what resource mobilization might mean when it comes to engaging with the African continent?
Well, one of the things I always tell persons when they're looking for resources is that resources, there's a lot of different ingredients. It can be someone that can come into your business to hold your hand and take you through a process. It can be someone that comes to set up a new type of or piece of equipment for you. It can be an individual that does a business plan or some other type of strategic plan for you, but it can also be an angel investor. And what I'm hearing from you there, that persons are not so au fait with the investment part. And therefore, there needs to be a lot of education that is done in that area. One of the shows I like to watch are those venture capitalist type of shows. And there's one particular one that's very popular. And you see them do a lot of negotiations saying, I give you this, you give me 20% of your equity, 30% of your equity, 50% of your equity. But because persons, to me, have been along the sole proprietor, the partnership road for so long, there needs to be more education done where now you think about your business becoming a corporation. And a corporation has a board, it has a supervisory committee, it has shareholders, you sell shares. And the part of angel investing is that you're going to be selling a part of your business to the person, or you are promising them that you will deliver a certain amount of interest on their investment that they're doing, that they're going to be giving into your business, and that in and of itself can have its uncertainties. I think at times entrepreneurs are very quick to say, okay, I'd rather do a bank loan because I can go down to this bank or my bank and they know me. And therefore, it's easier for me to say, okay, I will give my money to that situation. But an angel investor, they don't know me. I have to pitch. I have to have 3 years of accounts. I have to show them my bank statements. I have to let them see how I operate. Do I have standards? Do I have international certifications governing whether I do my manufacturing process or my procurement process and all of those things? So if what goes into it can be very daunting. And I have had persons who I have introduced opportunities to say, oh, that is too much. They need too much information. But that is something that we need to become a little bit more comfortable with. And you can only become more comfortable with something is if once you feel more knowledgeable about it.
Yes, thank you. And currently I'm partnering with the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Small Business, and we are we have a number of participants engaged and taking my year-long high growth entrepreneurship roadmap coaching and co-working virtual accelerator. And the real goal of that is to begin imparting the tools to build an enterprise. I really like what you said about corporate becoming a corporate entity, right? Even if that is a nonprofit entity or an NGO or an LLC, etc., because I believe that is what the world is requiring. And we have to graduate as entrepreneurs and really build high growth ventures and build enterprises. And I think that it is particularly difficult for those of us in the service space. Once you're in the knowledge space, it really, the models that we have seen thus far, attorneys, bankers, maybe, or financial accountants, consultants, so on and so forth, they manage just fine. When it comes to just being a solopreneur, you have an admin, maybe you might have some attorneys working with you, or if you're a consultant, it's you and your admin, etc. But what I am noticing and what I am advocating for through the high growth entrepreneur roadmap, my own business model, is that it's time to move beyond that. It's not so much about the money. You can be a multimillionaire with just that type of model, but really to transition women in particular, because women are the ones who tend to be less bold in moving into building enterprises, building boards, etc. And so I agree that we have to really begin considering that, especially, as we move into other spheres in the world and we are pushed, we will realize that in order to do certain types of business, the capital requirements will become greater to take advantage of certain partnerships, opportunities, right? We were together with the UN Global Compact, and one of the requirements is that you must be incorporated, but that gives you access into a whole other world. And so now it's time for us to really begin planning out, professionalizing, doing our SOPs, getting our corporate boards, etc., and beginning to build a high growth enterprise so that we can begin to access opportunities where these things that seem daunting to us are run of the mill in other spaces. So, there's that as well. So, as we begin to wrap, I wanted to talk about we talked about strategic partnerships, etc. But I want to use your expertise. We talked about what pre-COVID looked like in terms of the resource landscape, what it looks like now in terms of climate action, climate justice, social justice, etc. More of an emphasis on learning and upskilling of knowledge. What do you think the landscape will look like in, let's say, 5 years? Where's the trend? Where is it going?
Well, definitely empowerment. Empowerment of the various sectors will continue, but you will see a lot of it shift. Um, Not just dealing with persons who are homeless or persons who are involved in violence and crime, but empowerment to be able to make better decisions so that your life can be different. So if you will see a lot of as you might see a lot of assistance for reintegration. It could be reintegration because of the fact you would have moved from one country to the next. It could be reintegration because you were in prison but you will see more about reintegration. You will see more about dealing with persons who were abusing drugs. You will see a lot of clean energy, but you will still see some emphasis on fossil fuels because there needs to be one of the things that was realized was that there needs to be a gentle transition from fossil fuels to clean energy and electrical vehicles specifically, because there was a push for EVs, and then you realize there isn't a space where there's a lot of opportunity for the turn in terms of the range, in terms of the charging, in terms of the cost of electricity as well. Because if your electricity is already big because you are plugged into a grid that is fossil fuel run, you are now changing your vehicle to be an electrical vehicle to be plugged in to pay a bill that is powered by fossil fuels. So all of that is gonna be addressed in terms of the electrical grid, clean energy, clean vehicles, also homes, and all sort of agriculture and urban agriculture. We're going to see a lot of that
Mhm.
as well because resilience and reliance are some of the areas of it that the persons are trying to be transitioned into because of the fact that we're trying to get down our import bill. So if you can not have to buy certain things that you can grow in your home, then that will end up reducing your bill. I'm not saying that I want to put farmers out of business, right? But then there's a lot of other things that can be used and can be focused on, especially in the sector in terms of the corporate sector, the larger sectors like hotels and yachts and all those things. You, there there needs to be a view towards, hey, can I do things for those sectors and not just the small residential household all the time. So there are going to
Yes.
be a lot of shifts, but
Yeah.
we have to see how well we can shift and if there is the if we want to shift, because some persons are going to resist. So it's going to be over a period of time, a gradual transition.
That's really interesting because one of the things that has been sitting with me, I would say for the past maybe 4 or 5 months, back even in 2024, as I work throughout the region, at this point, I've worked with thousands and thousands, like a lot, thousands of entrepreneurs, right? Through all sorts of partnerships. And I am seeing a replication of the same businesses and the same business models. And so, if we take the beauty space, for instance, and we see the proliferation of persons using their genius in formulating natural soaps and washes and hair products, less makeup, you will realize, right? Less makeup, but in that space, you know, I often wonder, and no matter where you go, if when I travel and I go to Canada, for instance, and I go to the expos, I can swap out one person's table in Montreal or Toronto for an entrepreneur's table in the region. You would not know the difference. The cut of the soap is the same. Sometimes there might be more sophisticated packaging. Actually, our packaging is a little more sophisticated in the region, in certain countries, but in terms of the look, the packaging for the most part, the merchandising is much the same, right? They could be swapped in and out. Now, of course, the efficacy of the product that might be different. I would not know. But in terms of the visual representation, the unique selling propositions, the fact that it's organic, etc. Like the word, like we're all here, we've caught on. And so I consider how are we going to pivot? Because I believe that the B2B model is being, or the B2B segment in business models, that is being left behind generally for the Caribbean business, right? They love to focus on B2C. But as the cost of production rises, as inputs rise due to tariffs, etc., I am of the opinion that perhaps, and given the context and the information you've given us about the shifts that are coming, the clean energy, a lot of emphasis will be in the energy space, in the corporate spaces when it comes to reducing the digital footprint. We haven't even discussed IT, which is the behemoth, which is what drives everything. I think it requires Caribbean businesses, particularly those in the physical product space, to consider how their genius or their expertise can transition into some of these sectors or into the knowledge economy. So perhaps it's not the soul. Perhaps you need to be selling the idea of you being a formulator. And I believe we need to transition, otherwise, we are going to get left behind. And there's a lot of emphasis on integrating digital initiatives into businesses, but really from the training landscape, it's about using tech in your business or using, maybe collecting payments, fintech loosely. I'm saying fintech loosely, fintech, etc. But there is no discourse around becoming tech-based entrepreneurs. And so that's a huge gap. And I'm worried that we will be left out of all resources available if we continue to do the same types of businesses that we are doing.
Well, definitely, from my experience, and I would also say recent exposure, every business can become tech-based. I have looked at shows, and one of the the gifts or one of the rewards for the show is to go and to do a VR type of activity. And the businesses now, every business has to now think about how can you get into AR and VR. And AR and VR, I mean virtual reality. Um, have some sort of digital interaction online on your Facebook page or on your some type of social media page where you can show someone a formulation, a simple formulation that you find online, a recipe you can see online, but you can show someone's hands doing it, enhance it, sharpen it, use all of our technological magic that we can do, and we can do all of our infomercials and so forth and make it look very interactive.
Correct.
Because all of those things are in because now, like I was saying before, the businesses now have to become more experiential, have a class, show persons how something can be used or can be formulated and used in whatever part of the body that you make for it. But it has to be something where you can now reach out and become more experiential with your online audience and introduce levels of technology. It will take some research because I know for a fact that once somebody sees digital transformation involved in some course, they say, "Oh, I make soap. That doesn't include me," or "Oh, I make lip gloss. That doesn't include me." But it can. It
And
can.
it must.
It just
And it
needs to be
must in the
must.
future. It must.
Yes.
Yes, it
Yes.
must. Okay, so I want to end with some practical advice for entrepreneurs seeking resources. And then we'll talk briefly about Elite Transformational Trainer. You're an alum. And maybe talk about how having a signature program, etc., can assist you in accessing resources. So let's go down. What are two common mistakes that businesses make when pursuing grants in this current environment?
Well, I think one of the mistakes that they make is that they overthink it. Um, you have to do your research, yes, for sure. I'm not ruling out that. But then you overthink it and you try to pare it down to everything. It isn't every grant that passes by that is for you, right? And I think because of the sector changing up where less handout grants are available but more resource, technical research and technical cooperation grants, and those grants that are attached to training. Um, and then you can be able to improve your process by buying certain products or buying certain types of machinery. Those have become more commonplace. Persons now think of the grant landscape as an area that has shrunk. And it hasn't really shrunk in a way, but it's just that you have to broaden your horizons to look at it in a different way. Look at the bigger picture. If you may have been able to get a car or a piece of equipment before, but then now because you are now being called upon to focus on new markets and also become more ready to be able to respond to different types of requirements, whether it is you want to get to the EU sector, they have their own requirements, the US sector, they have their own requirements. There needs to be now that that roof over you, that the roof is the policies and also the guiding documents, the standard operating procedures and all of those different things that need to be developed. A lot of companies don't have that. A lot of some institutions don't have that. I remember doing work for an institution and something happened and I asked them, so when this happens, where is the manual that says how do
Right.
I deal with
Deal
training?
with it. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm. All right. So they overthink and there are great opportunities for improvement when it comes to professionalizing policy, having policy-driven businesses, etc., and understanding the requirements of the space that is providing the funding. Because, like, if the funding is coming from the EU, there are certain requirements they are looking for because if you needed to access their market versus if you were accessing like the US market, etc. Okay. Now, in terms of resources and tools that businesses can utilize when seeking funding or responding to grants, etc. So they may engage you, but they do have to do some preparatory work on their own before they come to you or while engaging in the process with you. What are some like easy to access tools they can use to help them to the process?
Well, my two suggestions would be you can use AI, but AI also has to be tailored and customized, and the customization comes in with me because I can assist you in customizing based on your AI research or your search. So, and also there needs to be the use of online accounting or financial software. So there needs to be
Okay.
those two.
All right, yes. And but I use Wave and I did see in St. Kitts the SBDC. Shout out to my SBDC partners, love them. They having a Wave seminar and sometime coming up. So that's a free plug. Okay, SBDC. Now, what is your recommendations for a business that wants to begin embarking on a resource mobilization journey? Like, for instance, I don't do grants, as you know. I don't like them. I can check them. For those of you who don't speak dialect, it means that I find them onerous. That's the translation. I find them onerous. Uh, but as I begin to grow and expand and really position myself into high growth enterprise, what do I need? What is that foundation, those grant readiness, resource mobilization readiness pieces that I need to begin sourcing or implementing today, other than my accounts being online?
Well, definitely what I would say is that you take stock of your business. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to have yourself positioned in the short term, medium term, and long term? There's also the need to be able to break it up into parts. So if you want a particular thing, you may want a particular certification, you may want a particular professionalization, but it's gonna cost you $30,000. Can you break that down into parts? Can you break it down into courses? And then if something comes along where they will be assisting women-led businesses to get certain types of certifications, then you can say, okay, I want this because you already have it ready. So it's very important to have certain things ready. I always tell persons that you may want to see your business grow into a factory in the next 5 to 10 years, but what are the steps? So break down your process that you want to achieve into steps. Have those steps be almost like a capsule or a box that has a time frame and also a monetary designation. How, how much is achieving that step going to cost? And that is what I
Uh-huh.
also the you also need to look at your relationships. If they ask for an endorsement letter from a BSO, do you have a good relationship with SBDC? Do you have a good relationship with any other BSO, Chamber of Industry and Commerce? Do you have any relationship with any government ministry, any type of umbrella organization that can speak for what you are doing? So the professionalization and as well, definitely in terms of linked into an ecosystem, they definitely do not want to see that you're operating on your own by yourself, that you are linked into some sort of ecosystem. And currently, there is a push towards seeing a lot of things about value chain and supply chain and the
Yeah.
interlink of those things to make sure that you know you're involved in an ecosystem that is benefiting the end user.
Okay, very valuable information. So you are a graduate of my Elite Transformational Trainer, which is now open for enrollment. April 3rd, 2025, we begin our second cohort. I offer them every other year. The course is now accredited by the CPD group out of the United Kingdom, and Innovative Education and Training is also now an accredited continuing professional development provider. So I'm practicing what I preach, and I'm practicing what Natasha is preaching about professionalizing and being ready for a more global landscape. Now, and Elite is also available for licensing if you're an entity that would like to train trainers and or have knowledge experts have their signature programs. And I, yes, I'd like to get your feedback on the the time we spent with our first cohort, but more specifically, I'd like to talk about how might a signature program help position you for an resource mobilization opportunity.
Let me get some clarity. You want me to talk about my signature program or like a signature program that can help me to be more um
Well, well, you can talk
positioned?
about your signature program. It's the perfect time you're here. People will hear this. So yes, what was your experience with Elite? Talk to us about your signature program so that persons out there who want to book Natasha to deliver her signature program, they can do that because now they'll understand what it's about. And then finally, how if you are a knowledge expert, right? And that could be you're a formulator, you're a makeup artist, you're a consultant, you're a engineer, you're already a trainer. But how can having your own signature program position you to be part of that grant landscape, either as the recipient of a grant or as someone that a grant funder, that a funder might hire to work with them as part of the entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Okay. My experience with Elite Transformational Trainer was extremely it was extremely enriching. And I liked my course mates. I liked the the time that we spent together because it was very interactive and I learned so much from the others that were participating in it. I really appreciated the effort that was made by Dr. Tamu to create a particular ambiance throughout the course, to be able to give the accessibility of the participants to be able to give feedback. It wasn't just a lot of dumping on you, but there was chances to have things tailored, bounce it off of you, the course cohorts, and be able to get their feedback. And so that was very important because they are potential persons that could be involved in your program. So that was something that was very good for me, that was on the spot, being able to tailor and customize rather than having to go away from the program after the hour or the hour and a half and then have to think about, okay, what did she say again? How do I tailor this again? It was very immediate and it was very transformative. So my training program is that I do a lot of grant readiness and I'm always ready and willing to partner with organizations for you to be able to understand how can your organization be more positioned professionally to take advantage of grants. One of the biggest issues that there are with businesses, not-for-profits, and also government departments is that, oh, I don't have enough time. It's only 4 weeks along or 3 weeks to go and there isn't enough time to be able to do that. Develop they develop things ahead of time. And my program will help you to get more grant ready. Will help you to develop your profile, the department profile, or organizational profile, to be able to plug those things into your application and also tailor them because some of them have a word limit, some of the opportunities have a word limit. So you need to be able to press or expand. And all of that is what I can help you to do. There's also one-on-ones. I also offer a high ticket, follow you around type of thing where I can be available to your business. Um, I would say wholesale for about a month, 1 month to 3 months to look at your processes to see how you can make those more streamlined so that when the opportunities come along, you are much more poised and agile to be able to take advantage of them. And what I would say in terms of my final thoughts is that definitely grants are out there. It may not be in the form that you would like in terms of the amount of money, because that might be a little bit lower, but the opportunities are there to be able to show the linkages between what you're doing, as well as how it can impact your businesses. And the persons who are involved in any type of business, it could be soap making or whatever it is, you need to figure out a way how you can link into a business. So there might be an umbrella organization, it could be a diplomatic organization, some sort of International Development Corporation, GIZ is one that comes to mind. They may come up with a program that says, hey, we want to empower and lift up the circumstances of vulnerable women, but they can use you as a soap maker who can help persons to teach them how to make soap, but also enable them to understand the budgeting, the accounting, the record keeping, the different types of products that you have to purchase and the time lag, as well as the ordering, that so forth that you have to do. That will enable them to have a business, but it will also help you to show them that you can improve your life, your quality of life, your economic standpoint, your livelihood, with also learning how to make those particular items.
All right, all right. Well, I had said when we started this conversation and when I approached you, I said, Natasha, we on just do like 20 to 30 minutes. And Natasha did say, but that's going to be a lot, girl. I don't know how we're going to be able to do that. And so we've been here for an hour. It's been packed with information. And as we part, Natasha, just let them know, especially on LinkedIn, where can they find you or how can they contact you
But
before we go.
you can look for Natasha Leader, definitely. look for my name, Natasha Leader. Very easy to find. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You can message me and we can book some calls if you want to do our high ticket, follow you around, streamlining your business and your processes. That's good as well. And there's also the opportunity to be able to have functional workshops for your department and your staff.
Excellent. And so this ends the first episode of Rare Conversations with resource mobilization expert Natasha Lida. I am Dr. Tamu Petra Brown, founder of business support organization, Innovative Education and Training Solutions, and we offer rare, bespoke, customized engagements, particularly in the training and entrepreneurship space. Of course, I am the creator of the High Growth Entrepreneurship Roadmap. You can contact me wherever you see me on this platform, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. Coaching by Tamu on Instagram. And so it was exciting chatting with you, and have a wonderful rest of day or night, depending on when you are seeing this program. Natasha?
It was exciting chatting with you as well. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Bye, everyone.